Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. During his campaign and the first days of his administration, now President Biden was making a lot of talk about a return to normal. Well, I'm going to give him credit. He has achieved exactly what he said he was going to achieve. Although, at the time, I and many others were speaking against what was normal. Because what was normal? Unemployment, wealth inequality, poverty, hunger, corporations being bailed out and subsidized, and so forth and so on. What was normal during the Obama-Biden administration was the pivot to Asia, being adversarial toward China and Russia. The JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, that was always just a facade. It was never actually going to happen. There was no intent. It was during the Obama-Biden administration that the United States government started funding and arming the far right government in Ukraine after the violent overthrow of the democratically elected government there. The Minsk Accords. Angela Merkel has stated in an interview that there was never any intent of enforcing the Minsk Accords. Why would there be no intent to enforce it? Because the United States didn't want it. Those accords happened in 2014, 2015. In 2015 was when the United States gave $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. That was when what Biden was referring to and his talk with, I think, the Atlantic Council, when he bragged about withholding that aid until the fraud investigation against Burisma Holdings, where his son was employed and with no qualifications. And once the investigator was fired, then that money was released. He bragged, well, in 1 hour, I'm going to be on that plane. And when I get on that plane, if the investigator isn't fired, then you're not getting this money or this aid. Within 1 hour, the investigator was fired. It was during the Obama-Biden administration that 5 million families were evicted from their homes because of the housing crisis. It was during the Obama-Biden administration that we saw an increase of U.S. and NATO military troops along the border with Russia and the expansion, and we saw more expansion of NATO eastward. It was during that 2016 that Russiagate started. Censorship has always existed in this country, but it really went up during the Obama-Biden administration. with, and even if you weren't censored, then you were falsely accused. In 2016, I had people calling, and ever since then, I've been having people calling me, a Russian asset, a Putin puppet. If you had anything to say which was not adversarial toward Russia, then they tried to invalidate you, shut you down. And that's all that it takes for some people. No. If you're against a military confrontation with a nuclear power, then there's something wrong with you. You're not a patriot. Yeah, we are back to normal. Inadequate wages, layoffs, poverty, hunger, homelessness. Let me show you something. I've brought this up before. This is the U.S. debt clock. So usdebtclock.org if you want to look at it directly. Now, this shows most people pay attention to this top left portion, which is quite relevant. U.S. national debt, $31 trillion. The budget deficit is over $1 trillion, which deficit and debt, that's a false flag. Obama said he had eliminated the deficit. All he did was transfer the deficit to the debt, which is why they keep raising the debt ceiling, so that they can transfer that. If you want an adequate analogy for that, imagine that your household expenses exceed your income. So what do? You whip out the credit card and you transfer your current shortfall onto the credit card. Well, the national debt is the credit card. So here's something else other things to pay attention to, which is the state and local debt also. If you look at the federal debt to GDP, it's 121 almost 122%. If you look at the total debt, which is governmental, that's federal, state, and local governments, it's 135.55%. Well, let's go a little bit further. So, look down here, and when you include, if you hover over this, well, usually, all right, if you include personal debt, business debt, and add that to federal, state, and local debt, the actual U.S. total debt is over $93 trillion. Compare that to U.S. GDP, which is $25 trillion. So, in total debt, we owe nearly 4 times as much as we make as a country. So, debt held by foreign countries is over $7 trillion. You look at these numbers, and I really encourage people to look at that national debt clock, because the more you look at it and the more different divisions of that you look at, the more astounding, the more terrifying it becomes. We hold a trade deficit with virtually every country that we do trade with. Now, some people will try to say that Trump made any difference in this, and I will give him credit for having some open dialogue with Russia. He became more adversarial toward China, although that was more on trade than militaristic. He met with North Korea. So in some sense, he reduced international tensions, although the resistance had major problems with that. As far as censorship is concerned, he didn't really address it. He talked about fake news, but and stuff like this. But the only way in which he was addressing any of that was in a divisive manner. Socially and politically divisive. He did more to just drive a wedge between us than to join us together as a society. He didn't try to literally accomplish anything. It was all for attention. He did nothing to reverse any of it or improve any of it. And no, he did not improve the economy because real wages continued falling throughout his presidency. And in 2019, we had 9,600 corporate retail outlets close, and what was called the retail apocalypse. That was the greatest number of business closures in U.S. history up to that point. Since then, we've seen more through the pandemic and all of this other stuff, but that was all going to happen, pandemic or no pandemic. That the pandemic was only used as an excuse. There was a record number of U.S. corporations that were lined up to declare bankruptcy in early 2020 before the pandemic began. So the point is that we have always been in this normal, but Biden has really returned us to normal. In 2016, we had Hillary Clinton referring to Trump supporters, anyone not supporting her, as a basket of deplorables. And then this year we saw Biden with that terrifying speech with the red lighting in the background and demeaning half of the populace of this country, which is division, 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 be at each other's throats. Meanwhile, what? Is anything improving? Not really. You get diverted by things like the transphobia or transgender debate, but what does that mean in your everyday life? In real terms, what does this mean? We've had the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which is sexism to an extreme. We've got the government coordinating or getting angry because if they cannot coordinate with social media to suppress any voice on the right, but especially the left, anyone that departs from the establishment narrative. This is state-sanctioned censorship. And when the media is only acting as a stenographer for the establishment, then you've got state media. This is normal. This is the government ruling everything against the will of the people. So yeah, we're back to normal. What is normal? We need a new normal. We need to redefine what is normal. But only we can do it, because our government is not going to do it as long as they still are in bed with the people that are driving these divisions and these oppressions on us. We need to step up. We need to step up. Share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this channel and my presidential campaign, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.